Welcome to the Woodpreneur podcast, the number one podcast for the business and marketing side of the lumber, woodworking, hardwood flooring, and sawmill industry. I'm your host, Steve from Acres of Timber. Each week, we feature various wood business owners and entrepreneurs from around the globe. We share their stories, paths, insights so that you can network, learn, and grow your own wood business. Thank you so much for listening. Now enjoy the episode. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. Here's your host, Steve Larziliere. Today's guest is Sinan Music from SMC Construction. How you doing, Sinan?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Steve?
Good. Hey, why don't you tell everybody about the backstory behind your business?
So we are a general contractor located in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. We specialize on roofing, siding, windows, kitchens, and baths. We are 12 years in the business under SMC. I have previous construction experiences before that. And that's about the scope of it.
How did you get into it?
I got into it through a different business I had. I owned a painting company for years before that, and we were doing a lot of new construction painting. And
Okay.
as the new construction kind of, crashed and burned in 2008, 2009, it was, it kind of all went into remodeling. And as we kind of switched from one to another, I started running into more people that just needed more different services than just painting. So we're like, well, we can put in a piece of trim. Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, we can do some flooring. Yeah, we can do some tile. Yeah, we can do this and that. And then obviously I realized that if we wanted to do, a bigger projects on there, so we're not always kind of a subcontractor, that I would need to get my contractor's license and go after that. So that's kind of how it led into further things and starting up SMC Construction.
So did you start building yourself or did you start with like subs?
I started, everything was done with me and a couple of my guys that I had. So it was pretty much all hands on deck. And then as I kind of got it to a certain degree that, we kind of got the business going and we had continuous business coming in and certain reoccurring clients, I broke my neck and I was supposed to be in a wheelchair, but God had different plans for me. Um, Through that time, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift anything. So I kind of, all the jobs that I did have, I started working more as just kind of a general who would manage it, sell it, and project manage it. And that's when I started picking up more subcontractors. And I realized, well, like this, I can do, a few jobs at a time. But if I'm running all the jobs, I can do 10 jobs at a time, just pretty much making sure that the materials are ordered and the guys are scheduled and we're good to go. So then it kind of took its life of its own. And here we are, 12 years later.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. I was talking to somebody about I talked to somebody else. She got her foot run over by a tractor,
Hmm.
and it shattered her ankle or something. And she said that it forced her to, and we talked about anytime you have something crazy that happens, it forces you to focus on what's important,
So
right?
true. That is so true, Steve. It's whenever I tell somebody, I broke my neck and I was supposed to be in wheelchair, everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's that's a crazy thing, tell me about it." I'm like, "It's the best thing that could happen to me." And
Mm.
everybody's like, "What in the hell is wrong with you? How would you say that? How's that best thing that happened to you?" So I'm like, well, at that time, I had a young child and a wife who was a single parent, and I was just hustling to make that money and how to get that next job and how to, build a business. And I poured a lot of my time, effort, and everything else in it. I was running the business out of my house at that time. I was the accountant. I was the every hat that need to be worn. I just changed them throughout the day and I barely had time for a family. When that happened, it made me realize that, hey, I really, really need to put my priorities in order. And that's kind of how that worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
So,
you were probably forced to even come up with like okay, I can't move, I got to do this. So like it probably forced you to come up with new solutions and really narrow in on a skill set, right?
oh yeah, getting that contract, signing that deal, and that was just as important, but I can do a lot more of that than I can do other things, right? And if I put all my efforts into that and get my right subcontractors aligned, then, I can scale it, grow it, and make it bigger. And that's kind of what happened. But at the same time, I then decided after that accident that, weekends are off record. I don't care anymore. The weekends are only for my family. I created a monster that ran me for a long time, and then I just decided
Yeah.
that that's not doable anymore. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to create a business, and if somebody wants something on a weekend, well, I'm sorry, maybe we're not just not gonna work together, or I'm not gonna take that time away from my family, because my family needs me more than whatever it is that you're doing. I know it's not emergency. And if it cannot be waiting for Monday through Friday, well, maybe I'm not your guy. And when I made that peace with myself and realized that, it made me realize that a lot of people are willing to wait for you. You just gotta maybe, figure out a way of how you can accommodate, on the other Monday through Friday schedule to make that happen. And not like that I lost any clients or anything else like that. I think whoever I said that to, they're like, yeah, that's important. Let's figure out do you have time on this? Or, oh, I might be able to get off lunch, and if you can just kind of meet me at noon. I'm like, heck yeah, I can do that. No problem. Let's do it. So stuff like that. It ended up working for the business, but it ended up working also in setting your own priorities with your family and spending that time with them, which to me, it was at that time, I didn't realize how much of that I was, realizing and just putting all that pressure on my wife to take care of the family and the household and everything else while I was just, going after, trying to make some money. And yeah, it was a lot of hard work. Yeah, you kind of have to do that sometimes. But when you have certain expectations of yourself and then you lay those down on for people around you, a lot of people will respect that and they will wait for you and your opportunity to come and do business with them whenever that time may be.
Man, and you know what you said, you're like you had to learn those lessons while you broke your neck, and then you realize too, you're like, oh, it probably could have been much more worse.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like I always thought of like that was a God way of telling me, slow down, little man.
Yeah.
It's smell the roses. I always treated everything as a working day. I never had enough time. I always, I'm a first generation immigrant, to this
Of
country. My
course.
parents worked hard in factories for, minimal pay. And I,
Yeah.
growing up watching them work so hard, was something that it's kind of like, that's what you're supposed to do to make it, right? And everybody talks
Yeah.
about American dream and everybody talks about this, and you're supposed to outgrind the other guy, whoever that other guy is. And I was always, doing that and thinking that's what's necessary in order for it to succeed and to be at a certain level, right? But sometimes when you plan things out and just not put in the grind of trying to meet somebody else's schedule and take it away from your other important times, and planning those times out of when you're available for certain things, and then plan working on your business and not just have your business run you into the ground, you can be a lot more successful. And you can then, start looking at the reports of what makes you money, what doesn't make you money, what did you do better on one job than the other, what can you do to improve so you don't lose money there. I mean, my first couple of years as I was doing that, Steve, I was running so hard that I had no idea what the hell made me money, what didn't make me money. You know, I
Yeah.
was just like, open a job, close a job, pay the guys, pay the suppliers. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. So that made me restructure my personal life. It made me to restructure my business. It made me restructure many different things. Um, but ultimately, it was a positive thing that I took away from it, and it made me realize that, we're only here for a limited time. We're only here for a short time. Make the
Yeah.
best of it. Try to make it as fun as you can. If this is what you're, doing for work, because it's a long time to be, 8, 10, 12 hours of doing something that you hate. And then I started trying to turn that into a culture, and turn that into something that I can, when I bring my new people on to help me out, to um, have it more of a, yeah, it's a grind, we got to work, but at the same time, when we have that minute, we'll acknowledge and have some fun as well and enjoy that. So it worked out.
Man, I appreciate this conversation a lot. Um,
Well, thank you, Steve.
because
Likewise.
I love it because there's lessons to be learned in all of it. And so like the thing that I learned is like never take your life or your family for granted for the sake of trying to, you know, chase some arbitrary dream of work.
Right.
The other thing that I also realized too is I'm a first generation child of immigrants, and if let's just say if you're over 40 years old, there's probably a lot of trauma around uh, feeling like you are not productive unless you're working all the time. Because that was the model that we grew up with. We grew up with the model of like
Mm.
work, work. And if you're not working, you're not productive. And if you're not productive, you're like, who are you? Right.
Right. Right. Right.
And the end result is that we have lack
Mm.
of connection to our bigger purpose, lack of connection, and you can start to build a level of resentment in the thing that you are building. And
Right.
then you're so tired and so checked out from life that you can't even tap into what's going on with your family.
Right. Right. And that's kind of what it was. I gotta say, throughout that time, um, when I was working so hard on that business and putting that business, it was so blurry in my mind of what had happened in those years. Other than
Yeah,
having my child, the rest of memories of anything else are just a blur. And it's like,
yeah,
I'll have my friends or my family ask me, do you remember that? Like that, I really don't. I just remember that I was grinding like crazy. That's all that I remember at that time. And it wasn't like it wasn't on purpose, but you kind of get sucked into it. And as you said, when I switched the gears I had to switch my mindset, Steve. I had to tell myself that, hey, it doesn't mean that, like, paperwork is work too, right? Sales is
hmm,
work too. It's hard work. You gotta but to me, in my mind, like, unless you got, your sleeves rolled up and you're throwing that shovel, or whatever you're doing out there, that's not how it was seen, in my culture or my family, that's hard work, or
yeah,
that's something that, it should be given of an equal respect. Or, you know it's like, oh yeah, it's easy for you. It's like when somebody tells me right now, from some of my subs, it's like, oh yeah, you're just in the office, all day, and in a truck driving around. It's like, boy, I wish we could switch spots just for that one day, so I can see how fast you'd be like, screw this. Nobody knows how many things, just bounce off you, and you're like, man, I don't even know what day it is, let alone anything else. But that's the thing, that, you have that mindset, and it's hard to break out of that shell, when you, especially when not a lot of people I knew at that time have been going through the similar thing. And I don't have
yeah,
anybody to ask for advice. You know what I mean? I felt like I
yeah,
couldn't go to a competition and be like, hey man, what challenges are you having? Right? What are you dealing with? How are you dealing with this and that? And so, so how could I get some advice where it doesn't feel like I'm trying to do same thing as you are, but I just, how did you face these hurdles that came at you? And then I was like,
yeah,
first I thought it would be like, well, screw you, go figure it out on your own. And then slowly, as I would reach out to some of the people that were local doing the same thing, be like, hey, man, I know you from here and here. I like what you're doing. Do you mind grabbing coffee every once in a while, and just so we can sit down and talk and be like, hey, how do you deal with this and this? And they're like, heck yeah, man, I wish somebody would have done this earlier. So I started that, and I do that with a lot of the guys that I know, that I don't look at them as competition. I look at them as, um,
Peter. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, the more of those people I know, it's like, Steve, if I don't know how to do something, or if my crew is not good for it, man, I know this guy who does so good at that, and that's all he does. He lives, breathes, and that's all that he focuses on. Here's a guy for you who can do it a lot better than I do. And I'll do that many times. I'm like, I can't do that for you, but I'll refer you to somebody who's really good at it. You know, and even that took some personal growth to realize that, it's not like I'm begging for help or asking for help, but at a certain time of a business, it outgrows you, and the challenges outgrows you faster than you can kind of figure out how to handle that. And then sitting down and talking to these people that are, maybe a couple of years ahead, or many years ahead. They're like, yeah, this is what I did, this is how I went through it. So it just helps to have that circle that you can bounce off of, and instead of just focusing on that grind, it made me realize that, hey, there's so many of us in same shoes, and the same guy might be going through the same problem, is just down the road. Reach out to him, talk to him, grab coffee, grab lunch, you know, hey, is there something that, thank you for helping me for this, and you solved the problem for me, but do you have any challenges that maybe I could give you some either advice or some connections that I have that I may be able to introduce to you, or when I started doing that, and started kind of, how would I say, not to say that I was ever socially awkward, but not just to put myself away from everybody and just focus on my own thing
Put
and
yourself
keep it to
out
my,
there. Right.
yeah, put it out there and see
Yeah.
how, who might be able to help you out. It worked out so much for the entire thing that it helped me make leaps and bounds in certain things. So it made me realize that, hey, it's not always just, go in and grind. Sometimes go to a social event too, which I never did before. There's so many things that, our suppliers and our trade partners would put up to. I'm like, oh, that's a waste of time. I got so much things to do at work, that I would have never attended those things. But then, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'll go there, and I'm like, oh my God, here's so and so that specializes in this and this. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I didn't miss that. I'm so glad that I made that time for that event to make, to learn about something, or to help me with a problem that I've been having for years.
Yeah. And sometimes too, like having, but I just posted this the other day. It's like the ability to see the world from a world of possibility without limit. Because you
Right.
know how sometimes you're like, oh, I got a big mindset. I think big, and you're like, no, but wait, you hold back on certain things, or you like a little sneaky, or you don't actually believe that like the world can give you what you want. So what does that happen is like you hold yourself back from like whether it's attending a networking event or don't grab coffee with somebody because you're afraid of somebody. But like I think once you find a level of confidence in yourself and knowing what you give to the world and what your unique value is, which probably takes a lot of deep work, right? Some like self reflection and work,
True. True. It really does.
right?
Um, I feel like as much as the business grew,
Mm-hmm.
I personally grew 10 times more. And I've been just like a sponge, sucking it all in from every certain angle, right?
Yeah.
As the saying goes, like, what you don't know is what you don't know, right? And
Yeah.
and and when you start reaching into other things to figure things out, the successful people who do what they love, and who do what they really are passionate about, they're gonna give you hell of a whole lot of advice, right? And especially
Hell of a lot of that.
if you share some kind of a values with them or something that you share with them that clicks, you know, as a businessman, entrepreneur, whatever it
Man,
is, you know, they're gonna be like, yeah, I see what you're doing.
they're
You know, I
so
see you. I
open. They're
know.
so open. They're so
Yeah,
open.
yeah, and
Yeah,
they'll give
yeah.
you they won't like you'll ask one question, but you've been panicking for months thinking that like I don't want to do that and I don't want to ask for that, and then you finally build up enough courage to go and ask that, and then they won't shut up about it. And you were worried that they're going to tell you to go pound sand. Instead, they're like, you know, one of your, hey man, reach out to me, call me whenever, let's talk, let's, you know, however else I can help you or whatever it is, if you need in that, here it is, da 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 da. I got a connection for you. I'll send it to you. Let me get your number. You know, those things just open up my entire, you know, outlook on everything completely different from how I thought that would go. And right now, if there's anybody that I ever could help out with anything, I'm like, dude, what is it that you need? How can I help you? How can I be beneficial in any way to you? You know, pay it
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
what those people did for me, you know.
yeah, yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. I found that the more that I invested in myself, I got so much more back, and as a result of that, like I started pouring into other people, and
Hmm.
then they started pouring into other people as well. So it's just kind of like everybody just kind of keeps winning, right? Together.
True,
Everybody
true, exactly,
it,
exactly.
it it's a great feeling. So what tell us about the day-to-day right now on SMC. What kind of projects you working on? You know, what levels, how big is the team?
So I have currently two salespeople that just focus, designers and sales associates that just focus on kitchens and bathrooms mainly, and smaller interior designs. Um, then I have my business partner does mainly exteriors, focuses on roofing, siding, and windows.
Uh-huh.
And then I do more of the bigger commercial stuff or bigger, more complicated additions to, um, you know, sell them, either project manage it or assist project managing that. And then, you know, on day-to-day business. And then we have two project managers. We have a crew that just does pretty much. We were thinking of how to, do we want to have more employees that are in the field, or
Hmm.
do we want to have a crew of unicorns, per se, the guys that know how to do most of it? And then
Yeah,
where our subs hold up a schedule, I'm able to use those guys to fill in and
yeah,
keep the schedule moving, you know? So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of what we settled on and what we have, and rest is all subcontractors, right? Um, because and especially in the renovations, when you deal with kitchens and bathrooms, you know, and you're trying to keep that
Hmm.
schedule, that's usually kind of where you utilize that crew mostly. But for commercial stuff that I do, you know, it's usually like you know, a bigger a roof job, a bigger window job, and or for example, renovations where like we did a couple of a local stores that we converted like one of their entire departments into like a makeup department, you know, or um, uh, rebranding on restaurants, and stuff like that as they kind of they go through certain phases, and after a few years, you know, they'll have certain things to change. So we have a couple of partners that we deal with that, and then you know. A dealer right now, we're a dealer for a window company, so we get
Okay,
um, a lot of windows that are made here in Minnesota that we get a great, obviously, price on, and it's kind of shipped direct to us, where we're able to pass that along and be extremely competitive in commercial space. You know, when somebody's looking for, you know, hundreds of windows, we get a lot of jobs like that that we do.
for sure, for sure. That's and how have you been sort of developing your team and your culture?
Oh man, that's been that's it feels like it's ongoing all the time, it's so liquid and it's so um it, it it gets influenced with outside of what's not in your control, right?
Yeah.
Starting from a few years back we had God, we had, let's see, two, three, four, we had about nine people just in the office, and then we kind of came down after COVID to just bare bones, three people, right? um
Yeah.
and then starting that back up again, was hard, and just kind of what that's the sucky part, where something that has so much impact on your business, but yet it has, like, it's
Yeah.
none of your doing, right? um
Yeah.
and then people go and either we were not busy enough to bring some of those back, or they found something else before we needed to, before we needed them back, or before our side picked up. So right now, as we rebuilt to the current team, it was more of, as the growth and as the sales were going, that's when we decided to bring more people to help whichever department needed it. But it was kind of same across the board for everybody, that this is more of a it's a small company, it's a family feel. We are a family at work too. And your
Yeah.
family is our family, because, if your kid is sick and you need to be there, we understand, because we have that every day, and we need to,
Yeah.
jump
Yeah.
back and help out and switch the positions. And, I'll run around, deliver materials to this day if one of my guys isn't in, and catch inspections and do whatever I got to do. We try to make it extremely flexible and liquid, that we could go to other positions and cross train all of our people to help each other out when the need arises. And that seems
Hmm.
to be our best, I would say, key to success so far. That, if somebody even takes vacation, it's not like something just piles up and it's taking forever to finish up, but we're able to have somebody else pick that up and just kind of run with it, right?
Yeah. It's like you have redundancies in your business, right?
Right, right, right. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it started with me, like, literally before. I would panic when I would go on vacation, right? I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be a week. I'm like, it's gonna burn down, all these things that I needed to do, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, no, it really doesn't. It's not gonna. Everything's gonna be all right. Um, just what you kind of taught a few of those people to do. Now go into a little bit of a deeper detail of why, how, where, when, the way that we do it, why we do it this way, why we need these certain dates and things to be met in order to go forward. So then we keep that, and then we keep also running, like, we have weekly meetings with everybody, that just kind of catches everybody up on all the jobs that we have running, and brings everybody up to speed rather quick. We also use a estimating software that is also our CRM and also our project management, and a communication tool. So if something happens on one of my job sites, and somebody just takes a picture of it and puts it to that job, I get a notification right away. So I'm able to see that in real time, able to address certain issues right away. So we're trying to utilize people, technology, and everything else that's out there for us to give our clients the best customer service that we possibly can, and just make sure that they know that we're there for them at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed from your you're taking marketing seriously.
Well, that's another thing where the growth within me, came to play. And the marketing seriously, I thought that, construction had no role in social media, and that social media is, a fad that's going to go away, you know?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
what kids do. And then you realize that, like, oh my God, I am so behind, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's instead of, kind of taking certain things and putting little more effort into it from the beginning, you would have been further along than playing a catch up, like I feel like we're doing right now. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of in last couple of years, I forced myself to do that, and then I put that on a schedule that I need to do that, and then we hired a videographer, and it was uh, it was the hardest thing I had to do, Steve. I mean, I probably would have said no to you.
To spend money on somebody that isn't building anything, basically.
Dude, I know. Can you believe that? And it's a serious amount of money that you're spending. But then I am, how would I put this? I'm so self-conscious, and I was actually, and that it took me, I think our first 30-second commercial that we did, or that we shot like a
Yeah.
little intro about us, I think it took me 2.5 hours. I couldn't keep my
Yeah.
composure. I couldn't speak. As soon as I saw that camera, I would just like, man, I would freeze, right? And it's like there's no
Yeah. Yeah.
camera and I'm just all on it. And as I was just about to tell you, if you emailed me before, I would have been like, Steve, I'm so sorry, man. I'm just not comfortable on being on any kind of video thing, talking, hearing myself. To me, I sound like an idiot. What is it that I could say to somebody that might do anything, And,
Yeah.
I kind of got forced into that. And as I got forced into that, I had so many people that reached out and it's like, oh my God, thank you for this. Thank you for that. You did a great job on this. You did a great job on that. And I was like, oh, all I thought was like, I'm going to get hate mail for it. It's like, who gives a crap about construction? And why would you even put that on
Yeah.
there? If there's no, how is this relevant to anything? But actually, it was such a positive thing for us, and people like it. And then there start, certain segments, and say, give me more of this, give me more of that. Can you do something with this? Can you do somebody like this? So that we can learn more about that and whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I embraced it. I like it. And with that, we started also, that kind of opened up my mind on, like, looking at construction, looking at young people, looking at how many people leave the construction, and for every four people that exit for retirement, one person comes in. There's such a
Hmm.
shortage of labor, and people not interested in this. So I found out accidentally that, like, our local high school in the city that we're located in is gonna have like a shop program that's coming back. Man, I
Yeah.
jumped all over that. I talked to the teacher. One of my friends who's also in construction, he told me about it, got me in connection with him. He stopped by and I was like, how can I help? You know, he's like, well, you can help in many different ways. Come talk to the kids, tell them how to do something, blah, blah, blah. This is what we're doing. And then I'm like, okay, well, what else is like, do you mind bringing some of your office staff, except especially women, to let the girls know that I have in class that there's a space in construction that they could do things that, doesn't mean like you're throwing a hammer. I'm like, yes, our first time I brought down our entire office. And then I even forced my younger, I didn't force her, she wanted to, but then she got a little nervous when she got there. My younger daughter, she always says that, she's going to be running construction after me and she's going to take it over. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be like Sinan and Sons, it's going to be like Sinan and Daughter. Um,
Yeah.
I, I got
Yeah.
I got one who's really interested about it, but I think like she's more interested about the boss role than she is about, taking the
Yeah.
business
Yeah. Then the
seriously.
actual work.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Then the actual work is like, no, I don't do that. And the other one who doesn't want to have anything to do with it, right? So I brought her to, and I was like, I want you to introduce yourself and say that, you've been part of construction. And then she got there and she's like, Dad, I don't want to say anything. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Dad will talk. So I brought everybody down there to just kind of talk to these kids, and we were so excited, that this program was, it's going to start again. And a couple of years ago, it started a couple of years ago, or last year, they built a house that they donated. The
Sick.
materials were
Yeah.
donated to them. They put it all together. We helped them with certain things. My other buddy helped them with whatever we could kind of help in material knowledge or whatever. And right now, they're doing second project, but there's so many kids that signed up for this year that they would need to hire a second shop teacher to do this, right? And it made me feel so good that, there's so many kids that are thinking about it, and that there's a possibility. There's so many possibilities in this, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just to
yeah.
do something with your hand, and to kind of like, whatever it is when it comes to construction, you can, pull back, look at it and be like, hey man, I just did that. I made that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to me, it feels like it's a gift that always keeps giving.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and you can inspire somebody to pursue their own dream.
Right, right. In so many
Yeah,
different, when
yeah.
you think of construction, there's so many different ways you could go with
So many
this. And
different levels. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
for
So,
sure.
and once you know that, it's like man, it can be used differently, right? And it can lend itself to different areas. It's so versatile, right? Yeah, that you can
Absolutely.
you can have that knowledge go in so many different directions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so this is a part of the podcast where I give you any marketing or business advice. Is there anything that you are struggling with that I can help you with?
Is there anything I'm struggling with a lot, Steve? I don't know how much.
Yeah. What what's the first thing in terms of marketing and overall business?
I would say in marketing, when it comes to it, my biggest struggle right now. Well, my biggest struggle used to be that I invested so much time, money, and effort into companies such as, um,
House
not to
or
name,
Angie's or
yes,
whatever.
yes, 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 all those. I was like, not to name them, but like, I gave them good
Yeah.
amount of money for nothing, right? So this last year, we decided to pull all those funds back and put those funds into our website, our SEO,
Yeah.
and kind of take that approach, and then start doing. There's not a. I always thought there would be like a one place for all of this, in order for you to get business. And I'm realizing that, it seems to be like it's scattered all over, right? From social media to, Google to other places where you can be found, brand
Yeah.
recognition, and so on and so forth. So my biggest, I would say, struggle right now is just kind of like, I'm halfway into this. I see it that it's working, and it's working a lot more than I anticipated. But um, I'm kind of like, there's got to be something even better than this, right? And maybe I
Yeah.
just don't know about it yet. So I feel like the measuring of, I don't know what the right measuring of success of return on your investment would be on something like this, right? That's my biggest
Yeah.
biggest
So
issue.
so it kind of sounds like, I mean, you would like more data because it feels like there's like you're throwing a lot out there, and you're seeing the results, but you're trying to see which one is could provide the most amount, right? The
Right,
best result. And
right,
so I don't know, for folks like for businesses like yours, it's about like amount of exposure that you have, right? So this is a good way to look at it is like how many people are seeing your name and your brand, right?
right.
Based off of the different channels, was it Facebook or Instagram, or whether it's SEO, right, or Google.
Hmm.
And then from there, what percentage of those people are submitting a lead? And then from there, first there's a lead challenge. And then after there's the lead challenge, then there's the qualification and nurture challenge. Because, there's a lot of tire kickers in the world. And
Oh yeah.
then if you can but like on the front end, it's like, what are the sources of traffic? And then what are the best conversion mechanisms? So that's the way I would look at it. Uh, SEO is probably the best investment for you right now
Hmm.
because that's a platform that you own and you can
Right,
tweak and measure it, right?
right.
So that's the first level of metrics. What's the conversion from there? And then from there, then it's all about the nurture and lead. Okay, how many people have inquired once? How many follow-ups does it take to get an actual visit or quote out? And then based off of how many quotes get put out, what's the close rate on that?
Right,
Right?
right. Yeah.
That's the second set of metrics. The third set of metrics are how smooth is the project, and how at the end of that, through the sort of customer life cycle, how many of those are more likely to leave a Google review and or refer,
Right.
right? And then the whole cycle begins again, because now you have a group of customers that you've worked with. And then it's like, how many touches have you reached out to those people? How is the community that they're part of? How have you connected with them on Facebook? How often are you talking to them after you, and you can do that through friending them on Facebook and becoming friends with them and liking their posts. You can do that by inviting them to quarterly parties and barbecue for the business. You can invite, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so those are so one is like the lead acquisition, then it's the conversion, then it's the retention, and then
Right.
building out different mechanisms from there. So if you have no problems getting leads, great. If you're having problem conversion, work on that. If you're having problem retaining, because the best client to be sold is one that's already bought from you.
Right. Right. That is the truth.
Does that make
That is the
sense?
truth. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect
Is
sense.
that helpful?
It actually definitely is.
Okay.
And you just kind of supported something that, you had no idea that on my end of what I'm really trying to dig deep into and understand is, just with Google AdWords and all of the traffic that we're doing with, on the website and the SEO and digging into Google Analytics and trying to really, dig into that and understand that, which I never thought in a million years that I needed to even. I mean, not a million years. 3 years ago, I didn't know what Google Analytics is, let alone
Yeah.
anything else,
Yeah,
which
for
I
sure.
wish I wish I did, but it's okay. It's just pick it up from where it is and keep, you know, learning and trying to just kind of, the more you learn and the more you understand, restart and start all over on next year's plan of marketing.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Um, that's cool. Well, tell everybody what's your website so they can check out your work.
Our website is www.
Thank you so much, Sinan, for taking the time to share your story. I
I
look forward to getting it out to the community.
I appreciate you giving me a platform to do so. Thank you.